Spectres of the Past! In the latest episode of Ahsoka, the rebel heroes recover from defeat at the hands of Baylan Skoll. Now awakened in a mysterious realm, Ahsoka has come face to face with a ghost of her past. The episode contains spoilers from Ahsoka episodes 1 through 5, Star Wars Rebels, Clone Wars, The Mandalorian, and the Star Wars films. Hi, I'm Peter.
And I'm Devin. Every time you do Star Wars Rebels, it just...
It sounds like Saturday Night Live.
It kills me. So this is I Am No Jedi, an Ahsoka podcast, and today we'll be discussing episode 5, Shadow Warrior.
We really wish we knew that this was going to have a theatrical release in advance.
Yeah, we learned... we would have mentioned it last week, but we literally learned about this like as soon as we got off the air, off of recording last week's episode, or else we would have mentioned it. But this did have a limited theatrical release, which is so cool. And I really wish I'd been able to go to one, but they only had them at a handful of theaters around the country and a few internationally.
So had we known, I guess we would have had to tell people a very long time ago if that information was even out, which I'm iffy on.
I don't think that it was.
What a move that they're just like, oh, by the way, last minute, like, get your tickets, see this in theater, because it's going to be sick.
Yeah, it really helped build hype for it, because I was like, this episode is going to be an event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was very cool. I was definitely checking throughout the week on the website to see if they were going to add more theaters and more showings to see if I could get to one. But the closest one to me was like 5 hours away and impossible to get tickets. So it was not to be, but I'm very jealous of anybody who was able to see this in theaters because it was dope. So, Peter, can you give us a recap of this episode in one sentence?
It's my turn? Yeah. Okay. One sentence. This week, Ahsoka goes on a Jedi acid trip vision quest to deal with her shit.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. That's pretty good.
Thank you. I mean, honestly, we are hyping this up really hard, and it deserves the hype. It was freaking amazing.
Absolutely my intention to hype this up super hard.
Yeah, but in a nutshell, this episode was like much needed therapy for Ahsoka. Oh,
it's true.
Like,
this was pure catharsis and like...
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like... honestly, one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. I'm so happy. This aired is just over 24 hours ago at the time of this recording. I've already watched it 3 times, and I'm just it is giving me everything that I didn't even know I wanted.
Yeah, I think we feel the same. I don't have anything bad to say about this episode.
I have nothing negative to say whatsoever.
Is definitely like a good. That's what you want in your TV viewing. But I've definitely got accustomed to part of that culture is, okay, now I can, come up with some funny jokokes. And I'm just, I don't have a lot, it was just good. I was like, there's not really a funny thing to point to and be like, so Luke's face looked a little funny there, huh? Like that, there isn't any of that in this.
I have no complaints.
Yeah, like some people were complaining about de-aged Anakin. I noticed it at the end of the last episode, but I didn't really notice it at all.
It didn't stand out to me at all in this episode. I thought he looked great.
I forgot.
Yeah,
I didn't even remember that it existed. Yeah.
Well, let's dive in and just kind of take this through the whole episode. So we start out. So after the initial scene where Hera and Phoenix Squadron arrive on Cetos to investigate what happened to Ahsoka and Sabine. We're gonna just jump right into the world between worlds where Ahsoka finds Anakin, and they have this first scene together.
Okay, so you might remember I had a theory last week that this might not be Anakin. Mm-hmm. It might be something else. It might be Vader or something, because I was trying to envision a way of doing Force Ghost, and it actually feeling new and good and earned and working. And I just, in my head, I couldn't see how they could
do that and it feel good, especially with Anakin, because I don't know, because he was also Vader. Like, there's a lot there, and so throughout this initial scene, I still hadn't made up my mind. Like, if you watched it, you know it was Anakin, but I hadn't made up my mind if it was him or not in this scene. Like, I was like, it's kind of cool that I don't know. I'm still slowly trying to figure out what's going on. It really put us in Ahsoka's shoes. Yeah. That was cool. Yeah. It was cool to experience that. Like, that makes you actually on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And I'm, there's so much here in terms of, like, dialogue that's, like, setting things up and you're trying to figure out what's going on. So, like, one of the first things he says is, I'm here to finish your training. So you're like, all right, now we have a purpose. There's training she needs to finish. Okay, this is going to be like her Jedi trial, basically, even though she kind of already had her trial, but it wasn't really, or it was. But, this is going to be a really transformative moment for her. And he's going to be, like, teaching her some sort of lesson, but, like, what's the lesson? What is he, here to teach her?
And is it going to be, like, a hyperbolic time chamber rules? Is it going to be, like, she could spend, like, a year in there with him or something, and no time goes by outside? Like, I wasn't sure if they were going to do something like that. Like she has to run around with Anakin in a backpack in the stars.
See, I would have enjoyed that.
I was like, yeah. Come on, Snips, just like hitting her with a stick, Yoda style. I would have been like, this makes sense. Look at the callback. Oh, what fan service.
That would have been good.
So I lied. I did have a joke. I just didn't know until that moment right there.
Yeah. So then he is like, all right, we're gonna fight, and Ahsoka says, I won't fight you. And Anakin says, I've heard that before, which is a direct callback to their fight in Twilight of the Apprentice, which is, like, the best. Like, it's been my absolute favorite Star Wars moment ever.
It isn't, though.
It isn't? Wait, is it?
It
is
isn't.
That not
Twilight I rewatched it right before we recalled because I thought this too, but I wanted to be sure. I was like, what did she say to him? She doesn't say, I will not fight you. She says, I won't leave you.
That's true.
Luke is the one who says,
oh my God.
Says, I will not fight you.
Oh my God, you're so right. I was gonna.
It is a direct callback to that. Good. And when Vader saunters towards Luke after Luke says that, he's like, yeah, sure, bro. And then he kind of attacks him in this lumbering swing the same way he does
that's so
to
good.
Ahsoka.
I was gonna go back and watch it, but then I was like, no, I'm sure. I was, like, so confident about it. Thank you for looking at that, because that's so good.
I knew that if one of us didn't look at it, and I figured you would.
I was going to,
I was like,
but I was...
we're gonna want to know.
Totally. I was going to, but I was too busy rewatching this episode over and over.
Well, there's a lot of speculation. Like, I saw someone comment on, like, a YouTube video. They said, this confirms that it means that's actually Vader, because how would Ahsoka know that? And it's like someone else pointed out, well, she and Luke have talked. He might have given her a play-by-play. They didn't say play-by-play. That was my joke. Very possessive of my jokes.
That one's mine.
That was mine. I made that tweet.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
There are many YouTube comments out there. So many of them are the same. First, second, but yeah. Yeah, no, I was like, okay, so I'm glad that all those possibilities are there, because it's cool that it's open-ended to interpretation. Totally. No matter what angle you look at all of this, it stays in those rules, which is great. So
yeah, I love that. I love that it's like, it's definitely reminiscent of their duel in Twilight of the Apprentice. Like, you can't not be thinking about that when you're watching this, but I love that it also has that reference to Luke. That's awesome. Also, this lightsaber fight is just so good. Like, watching them duel is awesome. It looks great. The choreography is really great. It's so good.
We know Jason is Force sensitive, but it was interesting to me that Hera could hear it too. So I was wondering, is that Jason unknowingly kind of transferring what he senses to his mom so she can also experience it? Or is that just how that area is? Like, it's an area that's just very rich and powerful with the Force, and you can kind of sense its pulled Ahsoka into another realm?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's sort of like one of those, like, the veil is really thin right there, you know what I mean? Like between these two sort of realms. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
not so much even necessarily, well, it is about the Force, but it's also about like this other realm, this other reality being like so close and right there that yeah, I don't know. I loved the way that they did this scene, like the thing with the lightsaber noises and just like the sound design of this scene, how it starts off with the waves and just kind of like slowly morphs into the lightsaber sounds was just so beautifully done. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really cool. It also
yeah,
adds to the fact that they're just like, fly low and you'll find her because we can sense with the Force.
right.
Like, I really enjoy all the scenes with Hera and Jason
Mm-hmm.
and Chopper and
Mm-hmm.
Yang in this episode. I thought they were done exactly the way they should. They were
I
perfect.
agree.
But they also just felt very like. Anyways, this is the B plot because you have to know how someone does find her.
Right, but it's like
But it's just not
no,
important.
it's like we obviously just want to get back to whatever's happening with Ahsoka and Anakin.
It was just like
But
we just have to check this
really
box.
nicely. This was really yeah. It was a really nice way to introduce Jason's force sensitivity and the way he's able to like notice these things. And yeah, I just thought the lightsaber noises were really cool. Which incidentally, for our listeners, lightsaber noises was one of our original podcast name ideas when we were trying to figure out what we were going to call this. Because we originally just wanted to call it like, but we didn't know.
We don't know how to spell that.
So then we were like,
please
well,
put it in the comments if you know how to spell. If you can spell that, look, pew pew is very iconic. No one's ever written out lightsaber noises. If we then just call it lightsaber noises.
Yeah, we're like, maybe we'll just call it lightsaber noises and people will get the idea.
We really were on that for a minute.
That's
though.
true.
Like,
that was probably like our plan B.
It was a solid like second, third choice for like a long time. It was
definitely a front runner. And actually, like when I was thinking about this scene, I was like, ironically, if we had called it lightsaber noises, it actually would have ended up making a lot of sense after having this scene because the lightsaber noises were like a really big part of this plot.
I would have definitely edited just Jason listening to us because we would have gotten a call out in the show. He'd be like, "Mom, can you hear it? Lightsaber noises."
Yeah.
And then really quietly they just hear Peter and Devin just being like, "Anyways, specters of the past." Hera, what the fuck is that?
Who are these nerds? What are they doing on Cetos?
In another galaxy far, far away, we can hear the fandom. No, don't go there.
Not the fandom.
Go anywhere else.
Yeah, the other thing that I was so excited to see in the scene was that we finally acknowledged Kanan, Jason's father. I was like, when are they going to acknowledge him? So we finally got that, which was nice. And I liked that little exchange between Hu Yang and Carson Teva when he's like, what's going on there? And he's like, oh, Jason like has abilities. You know, his father was a Jedi. And Carson's just like, okay, sure.
Yeah, he was so chill about it. He was just like,
yeah,
whatever.
He's like so used to it by now. He's just like, all right, sure, whatever. But they at this point needed to fill in some of that backstory for new viewers, but it was definitely nice to finally have Kanan's name in there and have him be a part of the story because even though he's not a character in this show, he's a very, very important character to the story, so we needed to acknowledge him.
I do think, and this is just for humor's sake, but like movies and TV are so, you know how it's like, oh, there was a murder. Who was it? Oh, I bet it was the best friend. Because that's the twist you always see coming, you know? Like, that's just where we are with movies and TV. I feel like new viewers, low-key, some of them are probably thinking, well, clearly his daddy was a white boy. So his mommy banged a Jedi.
Yeah.
That's just how it works in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because also, you weren't supposed to, so scandalous. It's just like, it checks all the boxes. They're just like, well, definitely, it was that. Why would it be anything else? Otherwise, he would just, also be green.
Jedi scandal. That's what was on all the hollow tabloids. All right, so now we're back to Ahsoka, and she gets dropped into the Clone Wars, and I at this point have just lost my absolute mind. I feel like my soul floated up out of my body, and I was just like experiencing another plane of existence. This was so good.
Yeah. When that first trooper ran by, I was like, it's happening.
Yeah.
We're in a memory of live action Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And then it kept happening. And it kept happening. And then Anakin's silhouette runs by, and I'm just like, his hair is shorter.
Mm.
We're going to get the Clone Wars armor. We're actually going to get it.
Yeah.
We got
everything.
everything.
I was like, is this real life? Am I dreaming? It was, again, I know I said this before last week when Anakin showed up, but like this was so much more than I ever dared let myself dream for. Like I never even considered having like live action, like Clone Wars flashbacks of this caliber is like, oh my God. It was so amazing and so heart-wrenching to see that. And this was done just so well. I was so happy about it.
I think I'm going to catch heat for this, but like it's in line with the concept of Avengers Endgame. Not in terms of like scale, obviously, and like you don't have an ending that's paying off a bunch of character arcs fully, but you are paying off character arcs that have gone all the way back to the Clone Wars. And this isn't like a single installment that just like improves or adds. It's like it is calling back.
Yeah.
It's going all the way back in time to address everything they've built with these characters.
Yeah.
So I would say it's in that class based on that criteria. And it did it well, which is really cool. And it does pay off arcs for her. It definitely does.
Totally. This scene just gave me all the feels. Like, yeah, the clone troopers start running out of the mist. Chills. Small Ahsoka, chills. And Clone Wars Anakin, chills. Just like, it was so great. So she says this is one of our first missions. And I was a little bit confused. So was this
This is Storm over Ryloth.
So that was what
It's the Ryloth
thought,
mission,
but
which you included in your
I know.
things to watch. Before I looked at it, I was just like, yes, Devin literally, like, if you follow Devin's guide, if you are someone who is watching Ahsoka for the first time, you didn't watch Clone Wars, maybe you watched Rebels, like, the episode Devin picked out of the many battles that Anakin and Ahsoka have together, she was like, you need this one, and they put that one in the flashback, so the deck is stacked. If you Google Devin and what to watch in order for Ahsoka, you get a really cool graphic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We can put a link to that in our description probably.
We totally should. We absolutely should.
Yeah, I think I looked up because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Ryloth, and then I looked up to see if anybody else said other stuff, and I saw somebody saying that first scene, that first part was the Battle of Teth, which was from I think the Clone Wars movie where we first meet Ahsoka. I'm not sure if that's true or not. So this was saying that first scene where they're running out, and then after that when they're in like the triage area with all the injured clones, that those are two different battles, that there's a time jump in there. I'm not sure if there's anything.
Oh, maybe there is.
I couldn't really tell. I thought it was one battle, but yeah, this definitely looks like it's from the Ryloth campaign. That episode, Storm over Ryloth, is a really, really crucial arc in Ahsoka's growth, which is why I included it on all my like, Ahsoka preparation list. And it's not a direct like scene from that, because that episode all takes place in space. It's a space battle, but instead of on the ground. But what is the same, and what is the really important step along her character development in that episode, is that she ends up, she comes in, it's like her first time leading a mission. She ends up getting a whole bunch of clones killed, and she has to like learn from that, because she's like, I can't, and so Anakin has to teacher, he's like, all right, you know, we got to regroup. What are you going to do next? You know, we got to keep going. And she's like, well, I can't be in command. Like, I just got all these guys killed. I'm no good at this. And he's like, no, like that happens. That's war. You got to figure out how to keep going. And so this is like a really, really crucial storyline of her learning how to be a leader as a child. She's 14 years old, and she's responsible for all these guys' lives. So I loved that they brought this back to that, even though it wasn't like a direct scene taken from that, but they took the whole point of that story and put it in here as one of her big teaching moments, because that was one of her big learning moments in Clone Wars. So that was just great.
It's interesting because Greenblatt, the young actress who we know from the Barbie movie, and other things,
and Infinity War,
Infinity War, she was young Gamora. She has a very difficult challenge because the context of the role she's portraying is older Ahsoka in younger Ahsoka's body, but older Ahsoka is also reliving it. So she has to channel like Ashley Eckstein because she's portraying that time period of Ahsoka, and also embody Rosario Dawson's performance, and that's a really tough line to walk, but I could tell that that's what the character was when she was going through it. It's especially because it's like when you're reliving that, it doesn't matter that you're older now, and it's like you're literally reliving it. So that's why I was kind of wondering, what is the lesson in this moment very specifically? And I think earlier I mentioned being on the edge of your seat as you're trying to figure out what's going on with Anakin was interesting. But at this point, I was fully convinced it was him. Yeah. But a more not nuanced, but like a fully rounded out, self-accepted version of himself. You know, like he is the father from Mortis because he did do absolute good and absolute bad in his life. And now he's dead. He's a spirit, but he can just look at it all and just be like, this is the path forward. And that's kind of what he's needed to do. That's why he has as a Force ghost, he comes to her through the world between worlds. So I was like, he's definitely trying to teach her something, but I feel like I was wondering, the edge of my seat was, is this good or bad writing? I have faith that it is good, but it's like, I'm trying to guess what the lesson is. The fact that I am is cool. Like, I don't 100% know. I know that she's kind of really stuck. I think I might have mentioned in an earlier podcast that she is kind of our first stuck adult in Star Wars for all of her wisdom and maturity she shows at a young age. She's very frustrated at the place she is in life right now after experiencing that her master was actually evil. After like her family kind of let her down and she left them. It's like, to find that out too is such a double whammy for what makes you who you are. So I was like, her lesson she needs a lot of lessons, but she also just needs some form of catharsis to get out of that stuckness. So I was guessing around this time, I'm like, I think he's just taking her on a journey to get through it. And that's what I was hoping for. And I was like, yeah, whether this is good or bad all depends on how this ends.
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways for me from the scene is, you know, seeing young Ahsoka there in that environment in live action really drives home that she was a literal child during the Clone Wars. Like, she is a child soldier, and just the trauma from that, you know, like, and it's one thing, you know, it's apparent in Clone Wars that she's really young, but it feels like it drove it home even more seeing it in live action and being like, she's such a baby, you know what I mean? And being like, she's fighting and she's, you know, having to kill and be responsible for her soldiers' lives and all these things. And I think a really big part of what this scene does is establish that and what her training was, you know, her being like, this isn't what I trained for. And he's like, this is your training. Like, this is what she just got thrown into. And it wasn't what she really was expecting or prepared for. And I'll say more on that later when we get to the Siege of Mandalore scene. But yeah,
I think that's a key. Everyone's talking about that right
Yeah.
now too. Everyone's talking about
Mhm.
that. I felt a little conflicted when we get to Siege of Mandalore because she didn't seem to get much older.
Mhm.
And I just was feeling so like, no, Clone Wars is so perfect. Don't like change any little details. But I was like, I think they're just, you know, they didn't want to get another actress, which is fine. And they wanted to drive that emphasis home. Because regardless, if you're doing early Clone Wars Ahsoka, yeah, she's 14. She's and she feels like she's 14 and a baby in Clone Wars. And it's fun and it's whimsical when you're watching it because it's an animated series for kids, but it is about people at war.
Right.
And they did have those moments in the show, like you were pointing out, where she was like, what the hell are we doing?
Right.
You just don't take it as seriously because Clone Wars is meant to leave you with a good feeling, and this is meant to, you know, show you the struggle.
Right.
It's almost like an anime. Because in every anime, it's someone's like a kid that's just like, oh, they're supposed to be like, you know, 12 or 13. You're like, really? And then it's like a couple years later, they're just like big and beefy because it's like, well, they're a teenager now. Now they're grown up, you know. It's like when you hear the ages of like Anakin, it's like, oh, he was 10 in Phantom Menace, and then he's 19, and he's 19 in this. He's supposed to be 19 at the beginning of the Clone Wars too. So it's like he's also like, this is a baby being entrusted with, please be good caretaker of other baby slightly younger than you, while under blaster fire and cannons and many robots trying to kill you.
Right.
Go. Go. Good. Do good.
Right.
Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. The other things I wanted to mention about this scene, and this is just kind of a general note overall. I thought Hayden Christensen was really great in this scene, and I think he does a really, really good job throughout the episode of like shifting seamlessly between different iterations of Anakin, because he's playing a lot of different Anakins here. And I think he did just a really stellar job. I'll admit, like, you know, when he was first in the prequels, he was not good. Like his acting was not there. I don't know, he was really young. He was a beginning actor, but like it was not good, dude. But
No, but you're right. This so took me for a ride because I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah.
He did it so well that I was just thinking about the character, and you're right, it is such a drastic difference.
Because he's also playing Matt Lanter's Anakin from Clone Wars, and he does that really, really well. Like, he originated the character, but Matt Lanter, who voiced him in Clone Wars, did so much for the character over the course of that series, too, of really showing this deeper emotional side to Anakin and developing his character a lot more deeply. And I thought that Hayden Christensen in this did a really beautiful job of embodying Matt Lanter's Anakin in the way that we see Rosario Dawson embodying Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka. So I think he did that really well. He's playing different versions of Anakin at different times, and he's shifting in between those even within the same scene. You know, shifting in and out of like different versions of Vader and Anakin and different versions of Anakin. And he does it really, I applaud this performance. I thought he did great.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. Because I wasn't even thinking about that literally, and I attribute that to how good of a job he did. Because it wasn't easy. I was thinking, oh, now that makes sense what he said, because that's coming from this place. That makes sense what he says, because, oh, that's so good. And that's all I was thinking. I wasn't thinking good job to the actor. I was just so in it.
Yeah,
so
good. That's a testament to how good it was.
I feel like that's what actors are going for. They want you to be that immersed in what they're doing. So
I totally agree.
Yeah.
The other thing I really loved about this scene was just the way that they did the visuals for this scene. I thought it was so perfect. I love how everything was like really soft and diffuse. So it felt really dreamlike and beautiful while still showing like the chaos and horror of battle. Like the distant explosions are like diffuse light rather than like really harsh looking explosions. You know, it was just really, really good tone setting, I felt like.
Yeah.
And you have these really beautiful like yellow and pink tones. You know, it was like beautiful but also horrible. It was just like so good.
Yeah, it was really pretty. It really made it feel extra surreal.
Yeah, totally.
You felt so isolated and immersed in it. Like that last shot, when I know we want to talk about this, when we're leaving this scene of the two of them, which, by the way, we touched on the fact that they both had a really hard job and they did a really good job with it, but like, you can definitely sense that conflict that I think draws these two characters together between them when they talk, that you felt in Clone Wars. Like, it's hard to be Anakin Skywalker's apprentice because he's so intense. But Ahsoka could step to him, and they pulled that off, the two of them, in both the Ryloth scene and the Mandalore scene. I felt, which was really, it gave me chills.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, but that, in terms of the color, I think that shot where it's a two-parter. It's a two-parter. One is him walking away from her into battle. There's so much going on in that one, because one, Anakin is walking into the light. Vader is walking into the dark. They're both charging forward towards war. They're both the same thing, and they're both walking away from her. And that was so freaking cool. And then she's just standing still.
Yeah.
The real visual poetry for me was the next one, though, where she's just standing still, and all around her, everyone is charging forward into war, and she's just stuck there, literally unable to move. That image right there is what Star Wars is at its core.
Yeah, well said. I loved that scene when he's walking away, and it, the explosion flashes behind him, and you see Anakin silhouetted, and then it fades to dark, and then the next time he's silhouetted, it's Vader, and then it's back to Anakin. And it's just like heart-wrenching and beautiful, and so good. Yeah. Should we move on to the Siege of Mandalore scene?
We should absolutely move on to Mandalore. We're basically already kind of dancing into it, but let's commit. Let's fully commit.
So we see that the Clone Wars scene is like the very beginning of Clone Wars. Now we're at the Siege of Mandalore, which is the final arc of the Clone Wars series, and is absolutely freaking amazing. But here we see Ahsoka kicking absolute Death Watch ass. She's still a baby, but like way more experienced and confident. She's really, you can see how far she's come from where she was last time in Clone Wars. And we see so much here. We see Rex, which was like almost made me cry. Just that like this brief moment we saw him for. I was like, Rex! I loved seeing him. I have so much more to say about the scene, but I'll let you jump in. I don't want to just bogart all the time.
I feel like both of us feel like we have to pace ourselves a little bit, because it's like, and what else? What is so good? Like, I feel like that constantly as I'm going through this. What an episode. Like, how do you talk about something like this? When I saw the blue lightsabers, I immediately knew, I'm like, oh my God, we're going all the way to Mandalore already? I was like, that's incredible. I didn't expect that. Like, it was like another double whammy that now in the flashbacks, she's on Mandalore. And then this was an important detail to me, because we've always got them, striking down battle droids, or it's Disney. I hit you with a laser and you fell over. Oh, they might be fine. It might be okay. But no. Young Ahsoka, 16, 17-year-old, takes her lightsaber, shoves it right into the abdomen of a Mandalorian person. They fall down dead. She continues fighting the battle. And I was just like, yes! Don't try to act like, oh, it was war, but we never killed anybody, because Disney.
Right? It's not Disney cartoon war.
And this is a play school war. I was like, no, it's actual war. Like, we should show it. Adds to the realism, to the stakes, the trauma. Totally.
And the choreography and the execution of that little opening with her fighting those Death Watch guys was so good. Like, that was just so well done. It looked awesome. So we see that, and then she has this next scene with Anakin where she's talking to him, so she says, basically, you were more powerful and dangerous than anyone realized. And Anakin is like, is that what this is about? Chris and I had to pause this because we started laughing so hard. Like, I love how it's just like, is this, you're still mad about the Vader thing? Like, Like,
That's so
look,
funny.
you slaughter a bunch of younglings one time, you do a few mass genocides, and you never hear the end of it. Like, you're still on about that.
That's so funny.
I just love it. He's like, that's what this is all about? I thought, like...
Oh, man.
I don't know.
That's
We
so
just talked about this
good.
so hard.
It's like, are you still on this?
Right?
I murdered half the galaxy? You're still holding that against me? That was like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That was like 6 years
it's
ago.
not
Like,
that big a
let
deal.
it go. Jeez.
Yeah. I'm a ghost now. I'm a changed ghost.
Exactly.
I'm a new ghost.
There's so much to unpack here. I'm just going to talk for the next 10 minutes if that's okay. I have so much to say about this.
Yes. I would like to add, because
I will...
another point for Ariana,
Yeah.
like when she said that line that you pointed out, that you're so much more dangerous than everyone expected, her delivery of that did feel very authentic Ahsoka.
Agree.
At any age.
Agree.
At any age, it felt like a very well-rounded, I understand the character and how they would say this to you. She's just like, yo, can we get past the fact that, like, you're trying to teach me a lesson and you're fucked?
Right. Right. It's like, yeah, it feels like he's like, oh, I'm trying to, like, teach you something here. She's like, right, but I'm still kind of not over the whole mass genocide thing. Like,
yeah, I still don't know if I can trust you as a
yeah,
teacher.
like, I kind of feel like we need to address that before we can really focus on anything else.
Which was such a nice beat. And it felt so authentic.
Totally.
Yeah.
So here's what I...
Talk for 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to. So here they're talking about... She's talking about her legacy being one of death and destruction. And this harkens back to in the previous episode when Ahsoka is fighting Balin, and he says, your legacy, like your master's, is one of death and destruction. And so that's what she's saying here. And, you know, she's saying, like, is that all I'm going to have to teach my Padawan one day is like how to fight and how to kill? And, you know, he's telling her, you know, you're part of this great legacy, like Obi-Wan taught me and I'm teaching you, and like you have this legacy. And she's like, right, but my part of that legacy is like death and war, and she doesn't want that to be it. And so I think that what I liked about this scene is I think that this gives more insight into her decision to leave the Jedi Order, that it's not just because of the trial and the general disillusionment, but and those are definitely a part of it. So it definitely is elements of those things, but it's also because they had made her into a child soldier, and she wanted her legacy to be more than that. She didn't want to just have a legacy of war and death and destruction. She wanted to be more. And so I love thinking about her, you know, feeling these sorts of ways during the Clone Wars and being like, is this all I'm ever going to be? Is like a warrior. Like, I have so much more that I could offer. And, you know, going back to the Clone Wars scene where she's like, this isn't what I trained for. Like, growing up as a Jedi until the Clone Wars broke out, she's like, you know, learning all of these other things about the Force and about life and about all this stuff. And then it's like, oh, actually, JK, you're just going to fight and kill people for the rest of forever. So I love thinking about this and her decision to leave the Jedi being about really thinking about like what her legacy is going to be. And so then going off of that, you know, Anakin's telling her, you know, within you will be everything I am. And she says, if I'm everything you are, and that's when they go into this, you know, he's like, well, because I'm more, and she's like, yeah, you're more dangerous. But, you know, I think she's been afraid this whole time that Anakin's darkness is in her too. And she says, but if I'm everything that you are, she's looking at him and all of the death and destruction and the Vaderness of it all. And she's like, is that in me too? So I think that she's been afraid this whole time that darkness is in her because she's part of Anakin's legacy. So this whole time, the pain that she's been dealing with hasn't just been the pain of Anakin's betrayal and the loss of losing him. Like, those things are definitely there too. But it's also the fear that same darkness could be inside of her.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what she's facing here. And could also be another reason that she walked away from training Sabine. The fear that she's going to pass that down to another apprentice.
Definitely a thought pattern. And that's why I like describing her as kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sabine probably sees it as her stepping away, and she probably literally did step away, but I think she probably made bad decisions in terms of not trusting Sabine, not committing to Sabine, not trusting her own instincts, that really half-assed a lot of things out of fear. And that's a reflection of not being very confident about what to do next. Even honestly, this harkens back to when she freaking quiet quit and let Marak drive off with the map. I'm like, you're not going to jump after that or try and pull it down like you did before? Like all these little things. Maybe that was just, the story needs to keep happening sort of decision. But this has felt like a different Ahsoka. This does feel like a resigned Ahsoka that we've been seeing. And if he's trying to teach her some sort of lesson, it's definitely that thought pattern needs to end. So fear is the thing, for sure.
Once we're back in the world between worlds, we see Anakin once again fighting Ahsoka. He's pretty much Vader at this point. And what's cool about this transition going from the Siege of Mandalore to Anakin becoming Vader is that in terms of the timeline, that's pretty much how it happened. Like Anakin was off at Coruscant becoming Vader pretty much while Ahsoka was fighting at the Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
So I'm sure that
he lined up with his timeline perfectly.
Yeah. And what's cool about that, to think about, watching this fight play out between the two of them, is I'm sure that over the years, Ahsoka has played through scenarios over and over again in her mind of what if I had been there? What if I hadn't been on Mandalore? What if I had been there with him? Would I have been able to face him? Would I have been able to stop him? Would I have been able to turn him? All of these different scenarios. So seeing her go back and fight him in that moment was really significant. Because he's going through that transformation before her eyes. In the scene, he's going from Anakin to Vader. And she was at the Siege of Mandalore when that transition was happening.
That's just why the writing is so good, because you can feel them playing through both. You can feel them playing through the people they are now, and you can feel them playing through what could have been at the same time.
Yes.
Which makes it such a good journey that she's being taken on.
Yeah. So what I thought was the most significant, and what I loved about this scene, so they fight. Ahsoka eventually disarms Anakin, and now we see her holding his red lightsaber and as she, holds it up to his neck, we see her eyes with the glowing yellow Sith eyes. And she throws the saber away, and she chooses not to go down that path. And so this journey that she was on, basically, she had to bring herself right up to that brink of the dark side to face that down within herself and choose to reject it. Because I think that this path has been about her being afraid to face, like I said before, that fear that Vader's darkness is inside her because she's part of his legacy. So I think that the lesson here and the completion of this training was about her confronting that darkness within herself and choosing to reject it. And so my theory on the Anakin-ness of all of this is that this Anakin that we're seeing here is the part of Anakin that lives in Ahsoka.
I think it's more. But I also love that it could be that. It's open to so many forms of interpretation, which makes it so good. The way I interpret this is the cathartic journey she's being taken on gives her the opportunity to experience something she was robbed of that has made her feel stuck. And that would be seeing this through. That's a great gift. But seeing it through gives her the chance to essentially go through the same Jedi test, essentially, that Luke goes through.
Right.
It's not about turning Anakin back. It's not necessarily about him. It's about choosing, I think, yourself. It's not even about saying no to darkness, but Luke has that moment too. He also is like going to choose darkness because it's so hard not to when it feels necessary. At the end, they both throw down their sabers, and instead of choosing war or die, you choose, I will just say no, and that might mean dying, but I'm not choosing war anymore. The answer to winning Star Wars and being a Jedi is to not engage in war,
Right.
even if that means death. So both of them were spared. You know, Ahsoka in this case, because it's all just a test. Luke, in his case, because it worked when he did it. It turned Anakin back. So
I love that.
when Ahsoka does it, it's, you know, she's constantly faced with this test. You will die, or you will keep fighting. And then she just says, but that's not what I believe in. That's not what it was for.
Right.
We have to do the hardest thing, which is leading by example, which might mean dying sometimes. So if you do that, then you are a Jedi. You have passed the test. So Ahsoka the White might also mean, you know, everyone was like, oh, is she going to be gray? Is she going to be a balanced Jedi? And I think being a Jedi is also what Ghost Anakin is. Ghost Anakin is the best and worst parts of both Anakin and Vader. He doesn't see himself as two separate things anymore. He sees himself as one person that experienced it all and learned from it, even though it was Vader was horrifically evil.
Right.
It's still like, you know, if you are a soul after that, you do have to reconcile with your soul.
I love that.
If you have no more fear preventing you from being your true self, then every Jedi in Star Wars essentially reaches enlightenment by somehow getting out of their own way.
That was beautiful, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
That was yeah, so well said. And such a good insight.
But I'm just regurgitating what they did. Like, they did that with Luke.
Right.
That was the idea behind the Zenness. And they did the same thing here. And I don't think it's about dark or light. Like, obviously light is better than dark, but it's about, when you say I am a Jedi, you're saying fuck all this other nonsense. You know, I'm calling in sick.
Right. I am unsubscribing from war.
Yeah. So I don't know. My main thing was that I took away from it is, like, if there's a solution, the hard solution in the test to the difficult choice of choose war or choose death, it's lead by example. And just say, we're doing this even though it might mean death, because that's what everyone else should do. Because otherwise you just do more war, and that turns Anakin into Vader.
Right.
That means that turns the Jedi into warriors that just also contribute to the war. So everything is either just move forward into war or don't.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is why her actions afterwards are a little bit more like, okay, move forward.
Yes.
Not necessarily into war, but without fear anymore.
Yes.
Like, the lesson works because it's a cathartic experience. You don't always need a lesson when you're stuck. You just need someone to rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it meant to me when I saw it. And I was like, that's why it resonated. Yeah. I was like, it must be so nice to be Ahsoka after that, to feel free.
Totally. And I love the transformation that we see her go through. And so there's obviously like a whole Gandalf thing going on with her, which we'll talk about in a bit, with Ahsoka the White. But also in this scene, I feel like she's not only Gandalf in this story, but she's also Samwise Gamgee in this story, because she's the one who holds the evil power in her hand and chooses to destroy it.
Yeah.
And that's
cool.
The best. So
he is the hero of the Lord of the Rings story, according to Tolkien. So that works perfectly.
Exactly.
He actually is. She's like the understated one.
Exactly. So I love that.
The last thought I had was because it happened underwater, and now she kind of awakens afterwards. The journey we described, symbolically, was this like a baptism? Has she done her is she low-key, is she a Jedi now? Is she a Jedi Knight? That's something we might see addressed.
Yeah, I've been
Because
wondering
it's
about
cool that she is no Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
I love that vibe and that
Mhm.
choice for her.
Mm-hmm.
But if, like, they might decide to go in that direction in an empowering way. That's like...
Yeah, I agree, and I've have also been thinking about that because, when she first uh sees Anakin there and he says, "I'm going to finish your training," that definitely kind of gives the impression of like, if her Jedi training is still incomplete. Like we see that with Kanan in Rebels, right? That he, like, Order 66 happened like when he was still a Padawan, so he never was able to do his trials and become a Jedi Knight, but then he is gifted that...
Goes on a vision quest.
Exactly, goes on a vision quest and becomes knighted by the Temple Guards. And that's kind of his own little like private ceremony to embody that. So I was thinking about that and thinking about her with that, because she did technically, when she left in the Clone Wars, when she, like, they did offer her, they were like, "Oh, you can, this was your trial, you can be a Jedi Knight now," and she was like, "Actually, nah, I'm gonna go do me." And so,
she's so right there, because that was such bullshit.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. They like screw her
anyone
over.
Who's listening, if anyone says, "Well, yeah, we treated you like shit and we fired you, but actually we were wrong, so we want to promote you now."
That's basically what happened. She's like...
That's what happened.
Yeah,
she's like...
They completely screw her over.
Why would I want to work with you after that? Oh, it was just a test. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. They try to like do the whole, like, that was my plan from the beginning. They like totally screw her over, and then they're like, "Oh, actually that was your Jedi trial and you passed." It's absolutely just like, it was a test and you passed. It's like, no, you just got caught fucking up and you're trying to like backpedal.
Yeah. What's crazy was, this should be pointed out, they were delusional enough to believe, even though they were wrong,
Mm-hmm.
They were like, "I guess that was the will of the Force. That was your trial."
Exactly.
That was just how they would justify their actions to themselves.
Exactly. Instead of like taking some friggin' accountability.
It's like, this isn't the Force. This was you. I have a problem with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's cultish to believe I can just do whatever I want because... if I get caught, I can just be like, "Well, the Force just saved me from making a mistake."
Mm-hmm.
Own that mistake.
Yeah, you still have to take accountability for your actions. So yeah, the the idea that, after all these years, and we talked about this in one of our previous episodes, the idea that she's like, she gets to kind of decide what being a Jedi means now, because the Order is gone. The Jedi are, there's almost none left. They're scattered. So she's kind of like finding her own way of being a Jedi and what that means to her. And so I think she gets to decide at this point, like, I don't think it's, when it's the question of like, does that mean her Jedi training is complete? Does that mean she can call herself a Jedi? That's up to nobody but her. I think she can choose to claim that title if she wants to, and she can claim to not if she wants to. And I think that will just depend on what her relationship to it is. So it'll depend on how this journey that she's just gone on with Anakin affects her own relationship to the Jedi and how she sees the Jedi, and if she wants to be associated with it.
When she wakes up, 2 things. Actually 3.
Mm-hmm.
1, Legend of Zelda vibes. Breath of the Wild. I don't know why, but yes. 2, this is really hilarious. I think it was Vulture. Yes, it was Vulture that had released an article the day before, and I didn't read it, but I thought it was stupid.
Okay.
And the headline was, "Please finally show us Twi'lek forehead."
This was
Next
what I was
day.
gonna say about it.
Here you fucking go. Yeah, I just wanted to be like, for all those show business things out there, I know how you guys have to pump out the headlines. Hilarious. The next day, so they showed the Twi'lek forehead. Oh, they did. Are we doing a reprint? How are we gonna handle that? Like, just Like, it's so low stakes, but there is somewhere in the world where they were just like, okay, so they got us. They addressed it immediately. Yeah, we kind of jumped. We should have waited one more episode before doing that. What were you thinking about that?
Yeah, I was just gonna point out that this is, the first time we've actually seen her whole head without like a crown or headband thing.
Right? Thin gradient.
Yeah, which I think is, I always assumed it was just because nobody had figured out how they wanted it to look. And it was kind of weird, but also kind of nice. And I think it kind of, maybe symbolizes like a rebirth, fresh start kind of thing. But it also just makes logical sense. Like when you're in recovery from a traumatic incident, probably receiving some medical care, like it makes sense that they would take off anything that could be impeding, like scans or whatever, and to just be recovering with like as little on you as possible. So it's the sort of thing where like I could see if she had woken up and had the crown thing on still, like we're so used to seeing her with it, so we probably wouldn't be like, oh really, she's still wearing that even when she's like recovered. But it makes logical sense that she wouldn't be. It gives me kind of a similar vibe to like Barbie in the end of Barbie when she like doesn't have the makeup on anymore. You know what I mean? And she her hair is softer and it's a much more like natural look. This is like Ahsoka's like natural no makeup look.
That's cool. When Ahsoka the White happened, I liked that it was kind of gradual.
Yeah.
Like, because it also, again, it's a Luke parallel. Mm-hmm. Luke's flap opens to reveal a little bit of white in his dark suit. Because she'd been wearing darker clothes, too. So, more visual storytelling. But Ahsoka was like, I'm going white. First, just a little white. Then my blankie. And then we're just going to bust out the whole Williams-Sonoma collection. Do a straight-up collab.
So, Ahsoka the White emerges. We have the scene with Jason and Hera. And then Ahsoka, listens to the memory through the force of this scene with Sabine and figures out where she is. And then she looks up at the sky and sees the Purrgil here. And here you have the music swelling. It's this like big moment. I thought the episode was going to end right there, which it felt very much like it was going to. And it would have been a great place to end the episode and set it up for the next time. And then I was just so excited that there was still more episode. I was like, oh, yay.
I felt like a moron because I was like, well, last episode, I was thinking, okay, so the way she's probably going to get to the next galaxy is through the world between worlds. Or just how else will they do it? They'd have to come up with something kind of arbitrary. And I feel like an idiot that I'm just like, it's just the Purrgil.
That's what I was,
it's already
I was thinking the whole time. I was just like, head to ride on the Purrgil.
I feel so dumb. I didn't think about that. I was just so wrapped up in my Anakin is actually Vader conspiracy theory that I convinced you of in front of everybody. Pulled a total toxic conspiracy theory on the air.
Hey,
bullshit
I thought it was
Star
a good
Wars
conspiracy
thing.
theory.
And it was cool, but like I should have just had faith that like they would do the thing we want and do it right. Yeah. It's just hard to do. And they
totally nailed it.
I couldn't have imagined something that good. That's when you know writing's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we see the Purrgil. We have this scene with Hera and Hollow of Mon Mothma. Hera's in trouble. New Republic is pissed. I kind of like that the scene is thrown in there because this introduces some stakes for Hera, with her career kind of on the line. I also really like that Hera doesn't make this Ahsoka's problem. She doesn't ask her to come back to help her. She doesn't even tell her. This is the sacrifice that Hera makes to save Ezra. She's willing to sacrifice her rank and her career to make sure that Ahsoka goes after Ezra and Sabine. So,
yeah. I think she would have done it regardless. I don't think there are a lot of scenarios that these characters would have put themselves in where the risk they're taking wasn't so important that Hera wouldn't be like, well, I'm putting myself aside regardless.
Yeah, that's kind of her whole brand.
That's her whole thing. She's like, I'm doing this because it's important. I believe in it. And they're just like, you got to step back now. She's like, no, it's been too late from the beginning. So thank you for just adding another hurdle to this. But like, I'm not moving. I know what's
Mhm.
up. You know, Hera would be an amazing Jedi.
Oh yeah.
She'd be fantastic because she has no qualms with, you know, knowing herself who she is, what matters
Totally.
moving forward. At least most of the
Mhm.
time. She's had her struggles, but most of the time.
Totally. Well, if Sabine, if little non force sensitive Sabine can be a Jedi, then Hera can absolutely be a Jedi, and I would love to see that happen.
Yeah,
She would be great.
absolutely.
So now we have the Purgle scene. They're going up. They're gonna hitch a ride with the Purgle. Snips is fully back, and I love that we see this just like completely different embodiment of her. She's smiling again. She's hopeful again. Like you said, she's free of this like fear that's been hanging on her. And I feel like kind of like how Sabine wasn't really herself in the first 2 episodes until she got her pixie cut. Ahsoka hasn't really been herself until she confronted Anakin and went through this journey in this episode. She's been this kind of like other, you know, much more stoic, much more reserved kind of version of herself. And here we're seeing her just free from the shackles of this burden that she's been carrying all these years, and she's just back to being Snips.
Yeah, especially when she knocks on the window to Hiang. She's like, "Go in there, come on, let's go," and she's just like smiling. I was like, that felt like how she used to joke around with Rex.
Yeah. It feels like she's playing. She's playful.
It felt
she's
playful.
And even when she's like, all right, let's go. And he's like, you should get back in the ship. And she kind of like looks up at the Purgle like, I kind of want to just like stay out here on the wing and just be in this whale's mouth. But she's like, yeah, I guess I'll get it back in the ship. But she kind of doesn't want to. She's like, let's just fucking go. Let's just do it.
Yeah. That was so cute. That felt very
And I love
Ahsoka.
like when he's like, all right, great. So like they know, so like they're going to take us to Sabine. And she's like, oh, I have no idea. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, I have no clue.
But this kind of confirmed my theory on the lesson a little bit. To me it did. I think there are a lot of different ways to interpret it, and they're all right, and I can see a bunch of different ways, and I love that. But like when she said, oh, I don't know, but it's better than going nowhere, to me I was just like, it's an unstuck adult now, just like willing to take that leap, willing to be like, I will take a class in pottery because it might lead to a better future, you know, like something crazy where you're like, I can't do that, I won't be able to pay the bills, so, you know, like she's just like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work
let's
out,
just experiment, let's just play.
Yeah, seems like the move, you know.
Feels like the right thing to do.
That felt like someone who was free and unafraid.
Totally.
That was cool.
We have the New Republic fleet arrives. This seems like too many people to send to retrieve Hera, although it's still also not enough.
It really isn't. They're like, do you know how many people we're gonna need to rescue General Hera Syndulla? They're like, she's no Luke Skywalker. No, sure, but like do you know what she did against Thrawn?
If she doesn't want to come, she's not going to come.
She won against Thrawn. We wouldn't have a Rebel Alliance without Ahsoka and Hera. Like, those are the two biggest builders of the startup.
That's true.
And
like founding members.
Yeah, it's founding members put in the most work, made the most stuff happen. They have the most passwords memorized at the company. Like, you want to come after them, you should probably bring the entire army, like, for real.
And so then we have the scene I'm calling Purgle Omnoms, where they just get in their mouth. And this we have a nice little Jason and Hera work in some kind of broad background for new viewers, kind of give us a little bit of, they took Ezra away and they saved us. It's not a lot of background, but if you want all that background, go back and watch Rebels, which you should have done before you watch this anyway.
I had a nitpick about that, actually. I did. Because he asks it literally right before. And I was like, put it at the beginning of the episode or somewhere else in the series, fine. But it was like, look, at this point, we have enough details that say the space whales do hyperspace. You know, those
Yeah, I
clues
feel
been
like those
planted all
couple
over
of
the place.
lines could have come a bit earlier in the series.
Yeah, and then suddenly out of nowhere, it's like, oh, we're gonna use the whales. They're gonna use the whales. They're gonna use the whales. Oh my god! If you're still not on this page, are they gonna use the whales? Oh my god, they are. That's kind of that kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense. And instead, right in the middle of that, it's like, hey, idiots, Mom, are they gonna use the whales? Yes, they're gonna use the whales. The whales can do a hyperspace thing. Did Ezra do it? Yes, this character we keep talking about that you don't know about, he once did it, so we know it will work.
Yeah.
And, oh, really? Yeah, it is now spelled out for you. And I was just like, that took me out of it.
Yeah, I
'cause
feel
already
like...
know. And it was too, like, in-your-face exposition that I was just like, this was an executive note. You know, we really don't know what's happening here. I think we should tell them. We should have someone tell them. That was an executive
I agree. It definitely felt like it was a little bit of like clunky exposition, but I was like, I understand that they need to explain this for new viewers. But it kind of...
I don't see it in the director's cut.
I agree. Although I like the idea of... I like the dialogue of it. I like that, you know, Jason's like, oh, like just in the stories you told me, like I like that they're kind of filling in some background. I like picturing, you know, Hera tucking Jason in at night and like telling him the stories of Ezra and of Kanan and of the Purgo and all these things.
But small tweak that makes such a difference in how it feels overall. Just put that somewhere else. Don't put it there.
And it's true because like this is the first time that Jason is seeing the Purgo but we've all seen them before because Sabine and Ahsoka saw them, you know, back in I think it was episode 3, and so that we got all this information about them then. But Jason wasn't around for any of that, so and I love like the look of wonder on his face. You know, he's looking out the windows and seeing them, and like cute. That. I feel like I've been that kid. You know, when you see something really cool for the first time, and you're like, oh my god, wow, look at that. Like that's really cool. So
and his agent got him another line, so everyone's happy. You know, we gotta look on the bright side.
It was a cute little moment. And then the last thing we see is the Purgle entering hyperspace, which we see the blue glow that they have, which was another moment that gave me chills. Like I said, just chills throughout this whole episode, but that blue glow that they have right before they enter hyperspace.
Very true to animation.
Looked like, so good.
On steroids.
Looked so good.
So good.
And we have this moment between Ahsoka and Hera that's just really lovely. And I was like, Hera's totally going to say, may the Force be with you. This is exactly the moment where that happens. And she did, and it was great. And this sets us up beautifully for the next episode.
It's a nice promise too. Because it's the right kind of promise there. I don't know if we're going to find a way back, but I will find them and make sure that the kids are okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty cool.
I love her face when she said, you know, when she says it, she's smiling. Like she looks hopeful. Whereas up till now in this point, you know, she's been so serious and fearful. And here we see her just like, you can see it all over her face. She's just like happy and hopeful. And she's like, I know what I need to do and I can do it. And it's all going to be good.
Honestly, the feeling I got from when it ended was I was like, I have this feeling sometimes in cliffhanger moments. I think I told you when I was watching Avengers Endgame, when they all come through the portals and start charging towards Thanos' army, I was like, theoretically, the story could end there. Obviously, it can't. Obviously, there's more, but like that's a moment that is like a period on the end of a sentence. Like, we brought everyone back together. Like, even though some parts of the plan didn't work, other things did because we've all been trying to be heroes. You know, it has that theme of, and it goes on, never give up and things. And I was like, okay, so if we have the whole Star Wars saga, Luke turns Vader back. At this point, we're kind of tying up loose ends, even though we want the story to go on. Like, Ahsoka's journey, who's been with us the whole thing, she still feels conflicted. So suddenly she reaches content enlightenment and continues to journey on, hopefully. Like, that to the fanfare at the end, I was just like, obviously, give me more, give me so much more. I can't freaking wait. But I was like, yeah, that's a good ending.
Totally.
To the whole franchise. The whole franchise could end there and I wouldn't be angry. Like, I'd want there to be more, but I'd be like, it is a good
Honestly,
ending.
I agree. I was like, I know that there's going to be 3 more episodes, but I was like, this could at least this could at least be
Thank the Mortis gods.
But I was like, this would make a great end of at least a season, like, because it ties it up nicely, but still sets up, you know, there's more story to come. But I was like, this is a beautiful place to end anything. It was great. It's a kind of the perfect, where you want to end something where it's like, this is a beautiful ending, but also leaves you wanting more, and it sets up more. But yeah, I totally agree with that assessment. Yeah.
We can both essentially, nothing else matters anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I was like, we have our like next question prompt on our thing is, what would you like to see in the next episode? I'm like, I don't even care. I can die happy now. Just like whatever Dave Filoni wants to do. And like, and Thrawn, we still need to see Thrawn, so like that, I guess.
yeah.
I was like,
that.
literally about the end of this, I was like, oh yeah, Thrawn. I like completely forgot. I'm like, I was so absorbed in this story.
I had that same thought before we even talked. I could die now.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, yeah, I'm satisfied enough.
And then I'm like,
what a great freaking
if Dave
story.
also has something going on with Thrawn that he wants to show me, like, sure, I'll take that. That'll be great. That'll be a cherry on top. But like,
I mean, if this was good,
oh my God,
it's got to be freaking amazing.
Imagine.
I hope this isn't one of those things. I mean, I'm confident it isn't. But sometimes it's like, oh, we peaked in the middle of the show. Like, I doubt it. Yeah, and that's what makes me want to watch more, because the dude keeps surprising, like, with good writing.
He's just unparalleled. As they're flying back over, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a very high chance that I'm wrong about this. This is the first time I noticed it. When Jason sees the ghost flying back with Ahsoka, we hear Ahsoka's theme playing, and this is the first time I've noticed it in this series.
I think so too.
And that just sort of like underlines that this is like her true return. Like, Ahsoka is back, baby. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I loved that moment. Like, chills again. I was just having chills through this whole episode. But that was hearing that her theme in the score there as she's being brought back, and in this transformational way, was just like gold.
Oh, as it was slowly building the music.
Yes.
Because it built more than any iteration of her theme has. It was like, we know this is the moment as it's building to that hyperspace jump at the end. When they hit that jump and the music crescendos and goes to blank, I gave a BA. Like, I didn't know I was going to, but I was just sitting there on the couch. I was like, man, I'm really feeling this music. I'm really feeling this story. I know it's about to cliffhanger me. It's really great, you know? It's like when you stand up and cheer, like when someone, you know, slam dunks a basket or something. Like, and right when it happened, I knew the hyperspace jump was going to happen, the music was going to end, and I just went, yeah! And I was like, I don't know if it earned that BA, but I felt like BAing, and sometimes you just gotta let out a full-on Howard Dean BA.
I would absolutely not.
You gotta BA sometimes.
I would absolutely not object to that usage of a BA. I think that's totally earned.
I didn't mean to Howard Dean it, but it came out with a B at the beginning of it, and I was like, I'm not mad at it. It actually was the right energy.
Well deserved.
In that instance.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. Silly question. Written by Devin.
Yeah, this one actually...
I don't know if we've been saying who wrote them, but Devin wrote
this one. Actually comes to us courtesy of one of our biggest fans, which is my mom. So thanks for the suggestion, Mom. She wants to know, who would you ask to help you with a home renovation project?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
Okay. I'm taking a chop out.
Oh, okay.
For this one. I'm going with Chopper. One, droids are very handy with fixing things, renovations, all of that. I'm sure there'd be a lot of things I don't know. I'd be like, Chopper, get the electrical parts. I don't know anything about any of the electrical parts. So he's just like, you know. But it's the energy that I want. And I know that from this episode. I always got to tie it back to the episode. Because there's a moment where, over the radio, Hera's asking Jason, how low are we supposed to fly? And you can hear Chopper saying to Jason, and I was just like, in my brain, I just interpreted that as just, you know, frumpled co-worker in the cubicle next to you being like, pretty fucking low. I was like, that's the energy I want with me on a home renovation project, where it's just like, do you think we have enough, I don't know, wood to build the house? It's just a lot of fucking wood, man. I don't know, like, you know, like, I just, what do you want to do about it? Like, I want Chopper to have that energy with me while we're renovating something. I don't know, maybe a dope basement that we're gonna turn into a cool lair or something. Be like, Chopper, where should we put the Nintendo Switch and that whole setup? Where's it going? Oh, Connor, where those goes? So that is why Chopper's my answer. I felt like it needed to be acted out.
I appreciated that. Yeah, that's a good answer. I would really enjoy just like sitting on that job site and watching you and Chopper do this project. I think that would be really entertaining.
I want a montage of it.
I
know we did
makeover
montage last weekend, but I really want montage. No words, but just shenanigans of us just like dropping things and like hitting each other. Him doing that thing. Something falls over. I turn around and he like zaps my butt, and I turn around. I'm like, "What did you do?" And then I like spill paint on him, and then oh shoot, I'm writing a meet cute. Either way, I want the montage. Yeah. Okay.
That's good. Mine, I'd have to say I'd go with Carson Teva. And here's why. I think that he would be great to work on a project like this with. He'd be really on top of it. I think would be a really good project manager because he kind of is paying attention to all the moving parts, knows what needs to get done. He's seeing problems. He's like flagging problems down the road, and he's like, this is going to be an issue. Here's what we need to do to address it. And he kind of doesn't get sidetracked because he'd be like, look, if we do this thing, like this is going to be a problem. This isn't weight bearing. And I'm going to like get distracted by other things. I'm going to be like, we should be looking at like, what color do we want to paint this? And he's going to be like, but let's put a pin in that and come back to like, this is an urgent problem we need to address right now. You see him kind of doing that with Hera in this episode where he's like, so the New Republic is pretty upset and they want us to come back right now. And she's like, yeah, whatever, I'll deal with them later. I don't care. And he's like, okay, but like that is going to be a problem. And he kind of keeps bringing it back to that throughout the episode. Like, so, but then he also, takes instruction and is really like loyal and dedicated and will like kind of do whatever he needs to do to get the job done. Like when she's like, you know what, the New Republic really needs to stay out of this right now. Go handle it. And he's like, I will handle it. And he goes and he handles it. So I think he'd be a reliable project partner. He would be flagging all the potential issues. But if I need to like delegate something and be like, can you take care of this? Can you do it that way? He'll be like, I got you, fam.
We went about this, both of us, from such a like dealing with corporate bullshit sort of angle, which I wonder what that says about our personal lives, because we could have easily gone with the answers like Ahsoka, because she would just, do it with the Force and it would be done. Or like Hera, because, whenever we chill out and talk, those talks would be so great, because she's the best and heartwarming. I don't know. Like, she had a lot of down-to-earth talks in the last couple episodes. There's some obvious funny answers, I feel, and we were just like, oh no, but like from a project management standpoint, like I want Carson on my Zoom calls. He's a really good number two. He's gonna advocate for the team, when it's not easy.
That's exactly what I did.
He's got a lot of balls to juggle. He's got to keep the fleet happy. He's got to keep Hera happy. He's got to keep his team happy. At some point, they held a funeral service for the 3 starfighters that got blown up in the last episode. We didn't even see that. That was a side project. He had to, he had to get that done quickly so that we could focus on our main deliverables, which was getting Ahsoka to another galaxy. They were just like, look, I need you to wrap that up, get that done. That's not important. And he just took it like a champ, apparently. We didn't even get to see it. Like, he did such a good job, we didn't even know what happened.
Exactly. He's unfazed buy stuff. They're
Completely
like,
unfazed.
oh, this kid has Jedi powers. He's like, all right, whatever.
This like Winnie's just like, well, anyways, his dad is a mystical Jedi, and he's just like,
Okay,
yeah,
He's
it's
like,
good enough for me. Okay.
sure. All right, is that relevant to? Is that going to impact my job? Because I just need to focus on what I'm doing.
I just need to know what I need to know. I don't need to verify that. You guys, that's for sure. We're good with that. Okay. Yeah.
Can I tell you my mom's response? So my mom posed this question, so I asked her who she would choose, and I'd like
What
to share it with you.
What was Mama Johnson's?
So first she said, Hu Yang seems like the obvious choice. As you said, every tool at his fingertips are part of his body. Droids are a good choice for this. But she says, to be a bit more thoughtful, I'd go with the kid. So Jason, it might she says, it might come out like shit, but no one lets him do anything. And I'd be like, here, kid, take these power tools and have at it. Make me a just make me a master bath on the top floor of this farm silo in my backyard and fill the first floor with a trampoline. He'd either die or he'd be fine.
Oh my gosh. That's great. Your mom would be running the ship like Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
Just giving everybody jobs.
Yeah.
Making them
Here
feel
you
better.
go, just go to town.
Yeah.
So that was fun. So if anybody has if any of our other listeners have suggestions for silly questions like this that you would like us to answer for our next episodes, feel free to let us know. Write us or leave a comment or something with a suggestion for one of these questions.
Yes. That's a really great idea.
Thanks. It's mostly because I can't think of any more good ones, so I'm farming it out.
It is getting challenging. I was like, I'm kind of amazed we stumbled upon a couple of them that felt like gems. Yeah.
I'm ready to farm this out to our listeners, so.
But that makes it more fun. What silly questions do you guys want us to answer? Yeah. Make a game of it. Be part of this. Yeah, that's our show. Thanks for listening. Yeah,
so next week I'm going to be in South Africa and I don't think I'm going to have any Wi-Fi, so I'm not going to be able to watch the next episode when it comes out. But on the plus side, I also won't be able to see any spoilers, so there's that. But don't worry, we'll still find a way to get some kind of episode out to our many adoring fans, and we will post that whenever we get it done at whenever it's ready.